new episode of Continuum Gaming, and today we are going to have a look at another Sailfish OS topic, or better to say we are talking about a couple of things which are going on in the Sailfish community at the moment. And the most important things are of course the new update that came out. It's a minor update, which is 4.5.0.19 in this case. And it included CLAT. We are going to talk about what that is. And then we are talking about minor and major updates and what to do, because Jolla asked the user base more or less about should we do minor updates or should we only do the major updates. And of course the major updates are going to be fewer with a longer time between them, and the minor updates are more often but have a couple of different other problems with them, of course. So let's talk about that, and I would encourage you to ask or discuss everything about this in the commentary section down below, because this is of course a topic where I can't give final answers or something, because it's just sometimes a little bit opinionated. And so let's have a look at everything. I'm not going to show you too much on my smartphone today, just so you can see it, of course. I'm using my laptop for everything here, but just to show you, this is my smartphone screen on the big screen here, and it's using the screen capture one. And if you want to update, for instance, Sailfish OS, because you don't have the new update, just go to your system settings. That's normally this icon you can see there, that one. And if you click on that, then you're going to the settings here, and after that, after scrolling down a little bit, as you can see, there should be one point to, in this case, Aktualisierung für Sailfish OS, because I'm German, this is a German language there. Others, it's an update, upgrade, something like that for Sailfish OS should be there. And as you can see, I am already running the 4.5.0.19 version in this case. It's a pretty small update if you have 4.5 already installed. So I think 75 MB or something like that. And if you download it, it's going to install it, and in general it should run through. If it doesn't, just let it run through. After a while, the smartphone is going to restart, and in some situations there will be a stuck progress bar, more or less, and if that one is stuck at the 100% part there, or the 100% for, let's say, something like 15 to 30 minutes or something, then in general it is safe to restart your smartphone and just do it. And in the end, how to do that, it depends a little bit on the smartphone you're using. On the Sailfish OS powered Xperia 10 Mark III, it's in general holding the major button at the side here, so the one where you're going to activate your smartphone with, at the same time as, I think it's the volume up or volume down, I'm not sure. I think it's volume down, if I'm not wrong. Hold both of those for a couple of seconds in general, and then your smartphone will do a hard reset, or let's say a soft reset. It's called a soft reset in that case. And that will just shut down your smartphone, and it will restart after that, and it should be fine. If not, just let us know, and we might have a solution for you if there is really a problem, but shouldn't be in general. For me, for instance, I didn't even had to do that in any case, because the progress bar just ran through and everything went as it should. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that question that they did. So major updates or minor updates. What are the more or less what is good about which of these options? Because in general I don't think there's a definite answer to that. But the community is pretty much for the minor updates already. So if you have a look at let's see, I think it's here. If you have a look at the poll results till now, you can see 123 voters voted for the minor and fewer major updates and a couple of minor updates. So just try to do more in between updates, more or less. The good thing about it is that you have a lot to talk about at the end. That's one of the biggest changes that will occur there, because if we have a look at the current releases we got, so as you can see here is always a published date, and in the end we got for 4.5 already about 3 updates. So February to March in this case, a lot of them for, more or less for the normal behavior of Sailfish OS at least. And there were for 4.4, 3 ones, and so on and so forth. So you can already see what it is. And as you can see, we had something like, not even that long ago, if you ask me. So there are a couple of different minor updates already happen. And in general, if they are jumping from 4.2 to 4.3 and so on and so forth, they are giving us more or less, I would say, something like they are calling major updates, because in general, if you really would call it a major update, we would talk about 4.5, 5.0, 6.0 and so on. So the first number is for me a major update, but probably they are talking about 4.5, 4.4 and so on. So the second one, in this case, the second digit. What are the advantages and the disadvantages? One thing I can already see is that, did you think about that it might cost money then? Because on the Sailfish OS website, for instance, there is a notice that if you are going to update or upgrade to a major update, so in this case it would be 5.0 or something like that probably, then you have to pay an update fee, because then you would have to pay for the update from 4.4 to 5 in this case, if it's really a major one. And the update fee for users, for AD at least, so Alien Delweg and stuff like that, would be I think 29 euros or something. I'm happy to pay that. I wouldn't really mind that if, for instance, once in a year or maybe once in 2 years or something that would happen, and I would just update for that price, because I just like Sailfish OS and it's not a big deal for me. But consider that. I'm not sure what this means if we are really going through with this, what you are voting for at the moment. And the second thing that you would have to note about that, why there are with minor updates, more or less often new bugs, or better to say bugs which are fixed, for instance, and of course new features and stuff like that which are coming out to the user, there will be new bugs too. And since the minor updates are really the ones where the testing isn't done very well, and in general there's not that much time for beta testers and stuff like that to really go through everything, it might be that you are getting more bugs in your software or in the system, more or less, for the end user, of course. So it's not about that the developers are working less efficient or something, but it's all about the end users. The end users is going to get the next minor releases then, and if they really do that and bring them out, then that might be a problem there. Good thing about it is, if we are going with minor updates, you get more often stuff to talk about, and of course to work about, so try things out and stuff like that. And the good thing is that a bigger chunk of the community, so more people, are going to test for Jolla. So being a beta tester is something, it's more or less what you are going to be then. But in the end, it's of course a good thing for the development of everything, because then many bugs can be fixed before the next major version is coming out and stuff like that. So it really depends on what you like here and what you want to do. In the end, since we are talking about Sailfish OS, which is probably more like an operation system for people who are a little bit involved and stuff like that, it might be fine. So we will see what's happening. But as you can see, at the moment we have probably, yeah, each 2 months, something like that. Sometimes a little bit longer if there's a bigger jump. So a jump from the 4.3 to 4.4, for instance, was a little bit longer. But in the end, something like 2 to 3 months in that direction are already the update cycles we already got here. And I don't think that we need more, but if you think it's a better way, just do it. Or maybe I'm just misinterpreting something, or maybe I just don't know some parts of that. So let's talk about it in the commentary section if you know more about it, or you want to just tell us about what you think about this. Okay, so yeah, as mentioned before, we already have more or less a pretty majority for fewer major plus fewer minor updates, or few minor updates. It doesn't mean that there are going to be less updates or something, it's just that the updates will be smaller, and the major ones, of course, will take a little bit more time because they are not going to prepare to be released, but a minor update is going to be in between, and it might be that there are a couple of bugs or stuff like that that are already found and have to be fixed in a longer circle. Okay. So, if you want to vote itself, I'm going to put the links and stuff like that in the commentary section down below, or in the description of the... Yeah, I'm going to put it into the description of the video, so just have a look at that. Okay, yeah, and we wanted to talk about CLAT, of course. So let's have a look at the release note here, and yeah, CLAT is something where yeah, only a few people had problems with that. CLAT is more or less an yeah, system to map IP4 addresses to IP5 6 addresses, sorry. And if you don't know what that is, it's more or less something where your smartphone or any device you are putting into the internet is going to be available on. So some kind of an address, more or less. And I can show you what this means. So in the end, there are two types of IP protocols. So or versions, better to say, the version 4 and the version 6. Version 4 is the IP addresses, so more or less the home address of your device in this internet, which is going to be, for instance, something like that. This is in general, yeah, it's something that is really normal to see because it's often your router or your device you're working with or something. In general, this is yeah, internal one, so for your LAN, for instance, but in the end, all you have to know is that it's in general 3 digits long, then there's a dot, then there's a 3-digit one, then there would be a 3-digit one, but it's often written like only 1 digit in this case, but it can be higher, and same for the last digit you see there. So it could be written like this, for instance, too, and well, let's say something like this would be totally fine, would be the same. It's an IPv4 address in this case, and this is more or less what you will see there. Problem with those is that there are only a certain number of IP addresses available, and the problem is that we reached that number, or at least we are very close to reaching it. So in the end, all the IP addresses for V4 are already taken, and because of that, there was a version 6 which was included, and the version 6 is a totally different system, more or less. It can be, I'm not even sure if there's some kind of a real system like I'm showing it to you here. It would be something like this, and there would be probably a lot of different ones too. So there's no dot anymore. It's more or less the double or the double dot, whatever that is called. I'm not even sure what this is in English. But in the end, it's this one, and those are going to be in between. And as you can see, the supports at least some of the letters you can see here. Sorry. Something like this would be an IPv6 address. And of course, there can be a lot more information put into one of the digits like this. And like this, IPv6 does really support a lot more addresses and will open that up. Problem with that is, so back to CLAT, what was going on there, CLAT. For some of the users, the mobile operators, something like Orange or something like the German Telekom or something like that, Kongstar in Germany was one of the ones that was really affected. I'm not sure if the T-Com itself was affected, but Kongstar was the one that really was affected. And the problem was that these service providers, more or less, had more or less something like a whitelist or a mapping more or less going on, which said that if you are using a certain generation of smartphones, for instance as Xperia 10 Mark III like this one, then this smartphone should be able to work with IPv6 in this case. And the problem is that's probably like that if you are using Android, stock Android or whatever on it. But if you are using not stock Android, but for instance Sailfish and a couple of other free operation systems, then that might not be the case. And this was really the problem. So the service provider just assumed that the smartphone would be able to use an IPv6 address, and since there are a lot more of them, the service provider tried to give you that kind of address. And in many situations it's going to work out fine, because there's of course already a shift, or better to say a support for that. But in some situations, for instance for some drivers and stuff like that, in the low level parts of your smartphones more or less, it can be a problem. And because of that, for those providers, they just gave this out, and it didn't work out for the smartphones of some of the users. And in general, to overcome this is already a known problem, and to overcome this, people, or better to say the developers, in general give a technology like CLAT chance. So CLAT is more or less to map an IPv6 address, for instance, to an IPv4 or version 4 address if the smartphone can't handle, for instance, that, or for a couple of different things on the smartphones, only IPv4 is working. And the problem was that this service to give it over was not provided by the provider, and like that there would have been a fallback called CLAT more or less, or something that is working with that, and this fallback wasn't implemented at the moment. So in the end, because the provider had this whitelist of devices telling, assuming that it's going to work, some people had problems with a couple of different services on their smartphones. For instance, one I know of was that you couldn't do a hotspot. So Wi-Fi hotspot in some of these parts or these service provider networks wasn't possible for some of the users. I didn't have any problems because I'm not one of the, or was not affected by that, because my smartphone or my service provider did all this like it is meant to be, because he is not assuming something, but just offering the different services, and my Sailfish OS version or my Sailfish OS smartphone could just take what it needed and work with it. But if the service provider was, let's say, lazy, I don't know if you can call it that, but if he didn't want to give you that service to map the IPv4 and IPv6 ones, and just assumed that your smartphone was new enough to do both, then it was a big problem. And as mentioned before, that was more or less the problem. And now in this version of Sailfish OS, you can see that there has been a couple of different things already going on. And if I'm going to go down a little, you will see a couple of different informations, and here is what this is all about. So if you want to read that in more detail and not getting told by me, just go to this post here and you will get a couple of different other informations about all this and what CLAT is in detail and so on and so forth. But I hope you can already see it. As you can see, there are a couple of different networks, like for instance the network in France, which are mentioned in this article, orange with the orange France portion. Sometimes orange Poland was one, and from Germany and Italy there was a couple of different providers which had problems too. In Germany it was mainly, at least as long as I am aware of, Kongstar, which had these problems, and maybe a couple of others. We don't know, we will see. But in the end, since CLAT is now implemented in the Sailfish OS version, it shouldn't be a problem in the future anymore, because this should cover if the service provider is not giving the standard device protocols that he should do or should give over. Yeah. So in the end, I hope that already gave you a little bit of a context here. There's one additional news for the community which is pretty interesting. I really like it. I will only just talk a little bit about it, but just to let you know, this is a great thing to happen, because for developers, the version of Sailfish OS Qt was pretty old already, and here's an effort to bring that to a much newer version. What is Qt? Qt is more or less a framework with which you can build stuff on your smartphone. It's meant to be used for apps and stuff like that. You can do a lot of things with it. But in Sailfish OS, many of the apps are using Qt as a library to create stuff. And with an old version, of course, you don't have all the new features and wizards and stuff like that. And because of that, this is going to help the developer a lot. Just to let you know, it wasn't really the fault of Jolla to not being able to update this or something, because there was a licensing thing going on. So what I heard about that was that the licensing of Qt changed, so that if you are selling something with the Qt library, you need special licenses to do that. So if it's at all going to cost money in any kind of way, then you really get a problem there, because the license is only free to use and used without licenses for this one, if you are more or less doing it for free. And if you are not doing it all for free and open source and stuff like that, Jolla has a few of their services, like the AD one and so on, which cannot be used for free, at least. And like this, it was a big problem to do that, and Jolla itself couldn't really overcome it. But the community is trying to overcome that by just giving them, an update, more or less, so they can, of course, provide it, because they are going to be as a not company, so Jolla as a company, the community isn't, and so it's more or less on the community to update this, or they can do it if they want to, and they did here. And this would really give a lot of different options to the developers and increase all the different capacities that will be there. And hopefully something really great is coming out. So those are more or less the things I wanted to talk to you in this episode about. I really like what is going on at the moment. I really think it's really a nice time to be with Sailfish OS. So if you want to tell anything about this, or just talk about it in the comments and stuff like that, ask questions, and just let us talk about what is going on in the Sailfish OS community at the moment. I really like what is there. Of course, this was a pretty technical one, I know that, but I hope you had fun with this episode. If so, please give it a thumbs up, of course, because this is already giving everybody and notice that this video is more or less more important than others, and so on and so forth. You know the drill with YouTube and the algorithms there. And other than that, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you didn't subscribe to now, do it now. And have a great time. Have a great week. We will see us in the next episode in, probably the next weekend. And other than that, thanks for watching and have a great time. Bye. Bye.